petroleum, we all know. We've seen that all along, and the opposition walking out. The rates have been increased, and even considering the fact that global crude prices have now come down, he has reintroduced the basic customs duty of 5% on crude oil, and on motor spirit and HSD, the rate has been increased by 5%, which would give additional revenue, and at the same time the prices will go up of petroleum and other products. Again, precious metals was one area where he felt that perhaps he could use to raise some revenue. So there's some revenues raised. When we come to FMCG sector, first of all, they'll be hit because of the across-the-board increase in excise duty. This would push up the prices of their products. How much will they be able to pass on to the consumers is what one has to see, because their products are also sold in rural areas. The income which is left with the people is little higher, but that's in the urban areas, those who are earning above a certain minimum level. But indirect taxes affect everybody, and in that sense it's a regressive tax, because the same amount of tax is paid by a poor man and a rich man and a super rich man, but then that's the way it is. So to that extent, there will be some additional costs for them. Also, when they use brand ambassadors, so whether it is Kareena Kapoor or whether whoever is the actor, today, when they are paid certain amounts, service tax was not being charged. And now a specific service tax is introduced on these brand ambassadors, which would come to this FMCG companies, because many of them use these brand ambassadors. Now, by and large, they should be able to get input tax credit of that. But if their products are exempt because they are going to the lower strata of the society, they will not be able to take the full credit, and in that case their cost will go up. They are all waiting for GST to come. If GST comes, because of the seamless availability of input tax credit, their overall cost will not be very high. Another focus area, particularly from employment perspective, was tourism sector, for which a very special benefit has been given. 100% deduction of the capital expenditure, other than of course the land and the building, other than land, is given to the hotel industry. So any 2-star and above hotels coming up anywhere across the country, and the other day I was at Delhi in the meeting with the finance minister, and most of the people there were saying that there is a huge shortage of two things: the rooms, hotel rooms, the infrastructure problem, and insofar as healthcare sector is concerned, the hospital beds. The average availability of hospital beds is extremely low, and they were asking the minister that why don't you do something for our sector? And the minister was very clear that we are not going to give any more deductions which are linked to profits. All our deductions will now be linked to the investments that people make. And in that context, I asked him, so then would you look at the production-linked incentives? And he said, no. We are clear, we are only going to look at investment-linked incentives. So no profit-linked incentive, no production-linked incentive also. It will be only investment-linked incentives. And that is where the healthcare sector, the tourism sector, they were all saying that the investment requirement is so huge. Where are we going to get that money? On one hand, you are telling us that you make investment and we'll give you an incentive. We'll give you 100% deduction so that more money is left in your hands. You don't need to pay that by way of taxes. But where is the basic money required for making investments? And that is an open question for which perhaps there was no answer. The real sector which is hit by this is the real estate sector. So far as real estate sector is concerned, the service tax is going to have huge implications, because now any activity which a builder undertakes of constructing a building, whether it's commercial or residential, would become liable to service tax. Service tax at the rate of 10%. And there were huge controversies. Nobody expected that this sort of amendment will come in, but that has come in. So unless you make the payment after the occupation certificate, the entire completion certificate is received, every payment that is made to the builder will attract service tax of 10%. So on one hand, there would be a huge cost here. On the other hand, the whole Senate credit mechanism is not yet geared fully so that it becomes a complete pass-through. There are a lot of glitches in between, and therefore the cost will be accumulated there. Cement cost will go up for the builders. The only good thing is that so far as the residential complex construction is concerned, there was an issue about the area that they can use for commercial purposes, for the purpose of deduction under 80IB, and in some cases the projects which were not completed within the period of 4 years, they've been given 1 extra year. Simultaneously, what's likely to happen is that the moment service tax is charged on this, the state VAT departments will come up and say that if this can be liable to service tax, why not to VAT? It's the same activity. And they would want to impose 12.5% VAT. In fact, earlier, after the judgment in the case of Rahejas came, and service tax department started issuing notices, the state departments also started issuing notices for recovery of VAT. So the additional burden could go up to 22.5%. Whether there is market which can absorb this is what we'll have to see, whether it would affect the recovery of the builders or overall sales. And state departments, it's extremely difficult to convince them, don't do it, because it happens across the board, various states, and there is really no mechanism. At least at the central level, there is one government you can go to and convince. Each of the states, as it is, are saying that we are under pressure, our revenues are under pressure, we need more funds. So this could very well become a possibility. And another factor which is likely to affect a lot of people is the tax on the rentals. Rental, we had the Delhi High Court judgment, and the matter is today pending in Supreme Court, where Delhi High Court said that the way the language is, rent per se is not liable to service tax. It's only service in relation to rent which is liable to service tax. Some people stopped collecting taxes. Some people said, I don't want to take any chances. Let me continue. Now we have an amendment in the law which will bring to charge the rent per se to the tax. So the cost will go up by 10%. Now anything that goes into retail sector, today because we do not have comprehensive GST, the retail sector which pays rental will not be able to get input tax credit because their output service is not taxable. So the whole retail sector will have a dilemma of whether they can absorb this or they will have to increase prices of the goods which they sell. If they increase the prices of the goods which they sell, the footfalls are likely to come down, and if the footfalls come down, then overall sale of the products will be affected, and that is where people say one of the sectors which would be affected is FMCG, because that people would say some of the things I have to buy, come what may, some things I can do away with, so you may not really be able to do it. So on the overall basis, there are concerns, because when I looked at service tax and when we heard Mamata Banerjee saying that my cost is going to go up by 6,000 crores, all my workings are haywire, because I never thought that you will impose service tax on the rail rate. Now if she is saying that it's going to go up by 6,000 crores, Finance Minister says my total revenue from service tax is 3,000 crores. It just doesn't match. And then to that you add the additional tax that they will collect from the construction, the whole sector, plus on the rentals. So there's going to be huge revenue coming in, which is not factored in at all. So perhaps there are some numbers which are missing, though people say the revenue seems to be overstated. Perhaps he has kept these cushions everywhere, and expenses are possibly understated, and therefore the fiscal deficit which is projected may not be what it is, it may be much more. And if that is much more, then there will be inflation and there will be difficult times which we all will have to face. I will take questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavna. That was a very lucid explanation of all the changes taking place in the tax code. You know, technical analysis, we always say the trend is our friend. So I'm going to call the person who's been called the Dean of Technical Analysis in India, C.K. Narayan, to tell us which way is the trend pointing. This wing, of course, has seen many a pointers, many a boom and bust. If they could whisper, Mr. Narayan, to tell us many things that have gone up and down.